There we go. How we all doing today? Just got this microphone for my birthday back in June, and it loves to randomly not work. Oh, boy. So, I have something wonderful to show off. Listen to that. No stupid music. Not that the music itself was stupid, but every time I would upload one of these videos, I would get copyright claims based on this song that was playing when we're in the shopping window. It's called Window Gazing, and apparently it's owned by the DeWolf Music Group or something. And I get like copyright claims on every video, so I have to periodically go back and constantly tell YouTube to mute the music. But now I found out a way that I could switch off the music completely and keep the sound effects on. That makes me very happy. So, for all these future Little Inferno videos, I won't have to dink around. So today is all about burning games that disappointed me. So we'll just go alphabetical. Oh yeah, and I can talk during this now since it won't get muted later. First game we're going to talk about is ActRaiser 2. Now, for those who played the first ActRaiser, it was part of the launch window for the Super NES, and it was it's a great game. I've never really met or talked with or read about anybody who hated it. There we go. Every single one of these games needs to get a special. Yeah, here we are. That'll work. There we go. ActRaiser 2. So, the first ActRaiser game had two parts to it. There was the side-scrolling platform action levels, where you would, fight to the end and unlock a new area. And then once you did that, you would play as this little angel helper who would, kill monsters while the townspeople built things and tried to live their lives and grow crops and build houses and things like that. And then once you managed to seal the monster lair, you'd go do a second level and defeat the boss of the world in order to go to the next world. very fun. So it had two parts: action platforming, and then there was sort of like town management. Very loose, very loose. Not quite on the level of SimCity, but it was very enjoyable because you'd fly around fighting monsters still, and using the little cherubs' bows and arrows to fight off little dragons and devils and stuff. But ActRaiser 2 got rid of all of that. And it says right here on the box, 100% pure action and excitement. False. So apparently they must have gotten feedback from somewhere that said people didn't enjoy the simulation management aspect of the game, and they made this game completely platformer. None of the simulation and stuff in the first game. And I remember playing this game years and years and years ago, and starting and thinking, oh man, ActRaiser 1 was awesome. What about ActRaiser 2 is going to be great? And I'm playing the game, doing the platforming, and I'm like, any day now, we're going to get to the platforming section. But eventually I looked it up. Nope. Or I said, get to the platforming. No, eventually we're going to get to the simulation section. But no, I looked it up, and there's none of that in this game. It's all platforming. And apparently it's a lot harder too. So, this was brought to us by Enix, the company that would eventually merge with Square. And you can see that the mighty brain trust that decided to take all of the simulation aspects out of ActRaiser, brought it to bear in Square Enix with some of their more questionable decisions, which we'll get to later. So for now, let's say goodbye to ActRaiser. And actually, the creator of ActRaiser, I believe, said he would be very interested in making ActRaiser 3. But that's all just still hearsay and tales. I, for one, would love to see another ActRaiser game. One that really hones in on the simulation aspects. And then, like, the things that you do in the simulation aspect can have an effect on the powers you have in the platforming levels, and vice versa. And, make it symbiotic and cyclical. And maybe, do it more open world where you can go back into levels you've completed to find more power-ups. Anyway, that's enough about ActRaiser 2. Jump into the next one. Oh, here we go. Beyond Oasis. Let's see, is there anything like a... No, I don't think there's anything like a genie lamp, unfortunately. There, we'll have a little tree. Oh yeah, where's that giant spider? There it is. And here we go. Disgruntled elf. Disgruntled is a good way to describe my feelings about this game. I had such high expectations for this game when I started playing it. I recently played it and beat it on stream through much toil and much profanity. Not proud of that, but that's where my head gets sometimes when games are being really cheap. Anyhow, it started out pretty good. You have all these moves that you can do, like kicks and flips and different spin moves and stuff. That part of the game is great. I won't take anything away from it that I've given it before. It gives you a really good move set. So for this like action adventure game, it's really good. But then comes like the really cheap bosses that really just becomes a game of, okay, do I have enough healing items to outlast the boss? Okay. But then the last boss of the game is like so trivially easy, it's almost like an insult to like all the effort you put through the rest of the game, getting through the really hard and tedious stuff. And if you watch back my videos on my Beyond Oasis gameplay, you'll see just how trivial the boss was compared to the other bosses in the game. So yes, I would say I'm very disgruntled with Beyond Oasis. I know people love it, and this could also fit on a list of another list I'll do eventually of games people really love that I don't love. So it could very well fit on that list too, but for now, oh, that was satisfying. Next game on the list. All right. Bravely Default. Hmm. So let's talk about Bravely Default for the 3DS. This game was a gift from a friend. No problem with that aspect. Um, and as a matter of fact, my 3DS was a gift from the same person. And this game is heavily influenced by Final Fantasy and the job system and stuff. And throughout the game, you unlock more jobs that you can give to your party members. That part of the game is cool, but here's where the game goes off the rails. The whole second half of the game is insidiously repetitive. And when I say repetitive, I don't mean like doing a lot of the same things you were doing earlier in the game. No, I mean doing exactly the same thing over and over again, because you're constantly like, the story is crazy, and it's like you're constantly going to these alternate realities to break the same crystals over again, and it's like, why is this necessary? It is so tedious and it's not fun. And honestly, there was certain criteria for getting the good and bad endings that I thought should have been reversed. I won't get into why, just in case people haven't played it. I know Bravely Second is out, I think. So, safe to say this game broke my heart, because the Final Fantasy influence is not to be denied. But, that whole second half of the game just killed it. It just killed everything. Bravely Default, where the fairy flies. And Bravely Default, unfortunately, is going to be another one that tons of... I don't know, though. I've never really researched the lasting overall opinion of Bravely Default. It could be that it's another polarizing one. But for now, it's probably in the category of games that lots of people love that I don't. Alright, here we go. Dragon Age Inquisition. Let's see, what kind of explosives do we need for this? So many possibilities. Yeah, this is good. But we need an igniter. Igniter. Sure. let's talk about Dragon Age Inquisition. So, to be perfectly fair, I might have had a better experience if I had played it on a next-gen console, but I didn't have a next-gen console at the time this came out, and I couldn't afford one. So, I played it on Xbox 360, and it ran like trash. You would literally sit there, opening, like, your menu, and you'd see this, like, frame of your character pop up, and then you would actually sit there and be able to watch as the 360 or the game or whatever applies the layers and the textures one by one. It was oh. I actually wrote the review for this game on a website that I wrote for, Geeks Under Grace, a while back. 107 hours in less than a week in order to get that review out within 1 week of release. So let's talk about the other problems. Okay? The romance options are terrible. The romance options that were there, in my opinion, were poorly done. Like the romance storylines or whatever. And the one romance option I did, it was like the most boring, like not worth it, like romance storyline I think I've ever done in any game that has romance. Then also, you had the whole the whole way they messed with combat, with getting rid of healing magic, and instead you constantly have to use these barrier spells in order to deflect damage and block damage, and they give you only like 8 potions that you can carry out with you. Like, they just messed with the, like, I don't know why they mess with the formula so hard. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I don't know why I mean, to be fair, I didn't have that much of a problem. You know, I went around, I defeated all 10 of the, like, dragon world bosses that were out there. But just to me, like, so many of the changes just felt unnecessary, and oh. And then there was like there was some exclusive I can't remember if it was like a pre-order bonus or whatever it was. It was some sort of bonus armor that you got, and you couldn't modify it. So it was like this cool armor you got, but then it was easily outmodded by stuff that you got, like, a fair way into the game, which is like, well, if I want to use this cool armor all game, let me mod it, but they don't let you mod it. So, that's all I got to say about that. Next game on the list. Okay. Yeah, here's what I'll do for this one. What else? Where do we get that sword? That'll work. Nah, I think I'm good with this. So, Dynasty Warriors 9, okay, to be fair, this is not a terrible game, but after I played, let's go back even further. I played Dynasty Warriors 4 and 5 and thought they were tremendous games. Got 6, Dynasty Warriors 6, and then they changed up a lot of the looks of the characters and the weapons that the characters had, and that made me angry. Like, they got rid of Sunsei's tonfas and gave him this dorky, like, curved spear weapon and other examples. But then they hit it out of the park again when they came out with Dynasty Warriors 7. Loved every minute of that game. Then Dynasty Warriors 8 came out, and it was even better. They had the what-if scenarios that I had always been wondering about. Like, you know, what if Guojia had survived the campaign against Yuan Shao and had been at, the Battle of Chibi? Because after he lost and fell for the chicanery of Pong Tong, Cao Cao lamented, if only Guojia was here. And they include that scenario. Or what if Guan Yu had survived in the battle against the Battle of Fawn Castle? These different types of what if scenarios. And those were very enjoyable to play through. So my expectations for 9 were like in the stratosphere. But then 9 comes along and they changed up the whole format. They made it sort of like an open world kind of, but with a campaign mode on top of it. And it's very, very strange. And it just, I don't know, it's a game that you could play for 2 or 3 hours and just feel like you haven't accomplished anything. And it's just, I'm hoping they get back to the traditional model of Dynasty Warriors, because this was another example of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Koei usually delivers, but this one was a misstep on their part, in my honest opinion. How do we want to do this? There we go. Oh, looks like the leprechaun himself won't dissolve based on his own blight, so we'll have to burn him. Okay, little leprechaun. Ugh. Nasty sounds. Okay, next game on the list. Oh, Fable 3. Oh, lordy, lordy. What do we want for this game? Yeah, this game gets the nuke. But what else? Sure. I think this is enough. So let's talk about Fable 3. Now, there's a lot of diehards out there that feel like it was all over after Fable: The Lost Chapters. Basically that Fable 1 is like the only good Fable game. I never actually played through the first one because I never had an original Xbox. Played Fable 2 on 360. Loved it. So my expectations for Fable 3 were great. And of course, Peter Molyneux did his best job to overhype it like usual. And some of the things that happen in the game are fine, but they did some other things that kind of disappointed me. For one, like all the trick shooting with like firearms and stuff. Because like in Fable 2, you could raise your skill level with firearms to where you could do trick shots. You could hit in the hands, the feet, disarm, hit and even shoot in the crotch and do headshots. Trick shots. Okay? They got rid of that in Fable 3 for reasons that perplex me. They also made the fights a lot more tedious. Like, you encounter Balverines very early in the game, and it's never just one or two Balverines, it's a whole bunch of them. So the game forces you to get really good at the combat really quickly. So for people who are stepping into Fable for the first time on Fable 3, it's going to be a pretty steep learning curve. What else? You also have this principle that Peter Molyneux talked about, like the fundamental problem that all these RPG and adventure games have is that you get to your pinnacle of power, you beat the end boss, and then the credits roll. And you don't have a chance to enjoy being at the pinnacle of your power. So the premise here was that you'd become the king somewhere in the middle of the game, and then in the rest of the game you'd enjoy the powers of being the king. And you can do that, but story-wise it still feels kind of weak, because you're still going around doing a lot of things yourself, even if it wouldn't necessarily been things that a king would be doing. But I mean, if you were just sitting on the throne for the rest of the game and giving out orders, it'd be pretty boring. But the stuff you are able to do is kind of, I mean, everything about being the king is kind of sidetracked by the main plot and trying to amass enough gold to save all of your people from the impending darkness that's coming. And there's not enough of like a post game to really say, okay, now I can really sit here and enjoy being the king. It would be nice if they had that. So, Fable 3 is another game that I don't hate, but it was disappointing in many respects. They didn't really fix the romance mechanics compared to other games. I would have expected something a little bit more expansive. They gave you like a thing where you could like take your companion by the hand and like run off and have a date somewhere. That was nice, but and then decide like where you want to have a wedding and how opulent you want the wedding to be. That's all fine, but I would have expected like better mechanics, for like wooing and things like that. But I've heard that we're actually getting a proper Fable 4 finally. Now that we've gone past Fable Heroes, Fable the Journey, and the Fable Legends that was canceled. Goodbye, Fable 3. Oh, okay. Oh boy, oh boy. So let's talk about Final Fantasy 13. Brought to us by none other than Squenix, that I mentioned earlier. I remember going out for the midnight release of this game, and I played Final Fantasy 12. Never beat Final Fantasy 12, but I enjoyed what I did play of it. It was just one of those situations where I just fell out of playing it and never got back to it. Okay? So, my expectations, because this was the first Final Fantasy that was coming out on the next-gen systems at the time, 360 and PS3. So, my expectations were immense. I went out and got it, and brought it home, and I was almost immediately disappointed. Like, the whole setting is, like, very futuristic. And it's supposed to be Final Fantasy, not Final Science Fiction. I mean, Final Fantasy 15 got us a little back further down to earth, but we've got a ways to go, I think, to get back to the true fantasy aspect of Final Fantasy. So, I always make a joke that the best Final Fantasy game that came out of the I think this is 7th generation is actually 7th generation consoles. Okay, yeah, the Wii. Right. The best Final Fantasy that came out in 7th generation was The Last Story on the Wii. Brought to you by Hironobu Sakaguchi and Mistwalker. Hironobu Sakaguchi is the creator of Final Fantasy, who later left Square to pursue his own interests and brought us such classics as Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon. If you haven't played The Last Story for Wii, go play it. If you can find it. Now, let's talk about why I can't stand Final Fantasy 13. All the characters are really annoying. I don't know why it has become such a theme in Final Fantasy games to need characters that are so emo and angsty. But I mean, it's been a problem ever since Final Fantasy 7. I tolerated it in 7. 9 honestly wasn't that bad with that. It got way more down to earth. And back to, its strong fantasy roots, much more so than 8 or even 7. And but ever since then, it's just like we need all of our characters to be emo and angsty and have tons and tons of baggage. That's the only way we can tell a story. Lots and lots of emo and baggage and arguing and infighting and I long for the day when we can just have a traditional adventure of good meets evil and, we don't have to have sympathetic villains. We can just have villains who, find the villain and kill the villain, It'd be nice to have another one of those once in a while. But for now, oh, that felt good. Oh, I could almost feel my fingers tightening around it as it shattered. Oh, it felt good. Come on, burn up. Okay. Next game. Okay. I'm gonna make a lot of enemies here. But hey, that's the name of the game. So, let's talk about The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Okay. I beat Ocarina of Time on the N64. I want to say 2001 or so. Somewhere in there. Could have been late 2001, early 2002. Not 100% sure, but it was somewhere in that window. Went out and got Majora's Mask right after I beat it. Brought it home, played it for maybe 7 hours, and took it back to the store. Like, to me, this I can't even describe how much I hate this game. And I know it's a very polarizing game. There are some people who love this game. There are some people who call this the best Zelda game ever made. I don't see it. And people are always talking about, oh, but there's such a dark story and moving characters, and okay, great. What about the gameplay? What about all those like recycled image, all the recycled graphics from Ocarina of Time? And honestly, the N64's graphics do not age well. Love N64, love Mario 64, but the N64 graphics just, they do not stand the test of time. And where to begin? Honestly, I could not do this game justice as far as tearing it down. I would implore you to, once again, go watch James Rolfe's review of this on AVGN. He tears it down in ways that I hadn't even thought of before it came out. But for highlights that occurred to me as well, the whole 3-day cycle thing just feels very unnecessary with the whole time limit. I know it's supposed to make things feel dire, but it's like, okay, you can do that without having the actual global time limit. You can say, okay, like this meteor is gonna fall in 3 days. Okay, so technically in the game, you have 3 days. So then every time you complete a dungeon, that advances the game 1 day. And then if need be, you can use the Song of Time to go back in case there's things you missed. And then you can go back forward in time again if you need to. You know, but the way they executed it in the game, where you had to like be in certain places on certain days at certain times to do certain quests, it just, I don't know. I don't know if people like that or if it was just like that. To me, was just takes everything out of the experience. I could not. The only positive that I could say about Majora's Mask compared to Ocarina of Time is they put the traditional Zelda music, the traditional overworld theme back in this game, albeit a somewhat remixed version, but it's there. That's something I always felt should have been in Ocarina of Time. It was disappointed it wasn't. Not that it's done anything to hurt Ocarina of Time's legacy. Hmm. And then, to make matters worse, like the coolest version of Link that's ever been produced, Fierce Deity Link. So, he only gets to be in this game, you know, barring appearances in, like, Smash and stuff like that. But then, apparently, you only get to use him, like, in the final fight. And that's if you got the Fierce Deity mask. I don't know all the details, because once again, I never beat this game because I couldn't stand playing it. But goodbye, Majora's Mask. You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you? Next game. Oh, okay. I don't know what I'm going to say for this one. Well, not that I don't not say. I could shred it. That might be fun. Let's do powder keg. Where are those colorful? There we go. Let's make everything really colorful. Alright, Record of Agarest War 2. This one's probably a little more obscure for some people. I played through Record of Agarest War and Record of Agarest War 0. Now, what initially attracted me to these games was my wife actually picked it up. We were just browsing in GameStop one day, and my wife picked it up off the part 1. She picked up off the rack and said, "Hey, what do you think of this one?" And it said something about how when you complete your adventure, you marry and take over as, the heir and continue the next generation. And in my mind, I'm like, that sounds just like Phantasy Star 3. I've always wanted to play another game that had that sort of mechanic in it. So I played through Record of Agarest War 1 and 0 that are built on exactly the same premise, have the same combat system and everything. But then comes Record of Agarest War 2, and it didn't come out on 360 unlike the other ones. It came out on PS3 only, as far as I'm aware. But they changed everything up. They have this sort of 3D overworld map system instead of like the sort of map with the dots that's in the other Record of Agarest War games. And they changed up how you earn relationships with your party members, and they changed up the combat system, and it just felt so foreign. I tried to play it for many hours, but it just did not click. So for that reason, I found it disappointing. Not because it's a bad game, but just because it just didn't live up to the other two games, in my honest opinion. Ah, yes. Maybe one day I'll give it another shot. Karen, I saw your list in the comments, man. You don't have to repeat it here. Because, honestly, because all the comments here go away after I'm done streaming anyhow. Don't worry. I'll look at your comments and get the lists. So, last one, and this one. Woo! I know which one I want to use for this. Star Fox Zero. Now, this is another one that might rustle a few jimmies, but I got Star Fox Zero with very high hopes. I heard that it was not like a remake of Star Fox 64, but was like an overhauled version that was built on Star Fox 64's premise, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. But what we ended up getting was inferior. It ended up it ended up controlling more like a twin stick shooter, which I do not care for at all. And the controls just in general felt very broken. And that's really the biggest thing. I mean, the graphics were fine. I didn't have any problem with that. They gave you different vehicles that you could use. That was fine. But some of the missions felt kind of tedious. Especially ones where you had to sort of fly, stealthily. Why is that necessary? Oh, hey there, Pippin. How's it going? I'm burning games that disappointed me. Glad to hear it. Oh, here we go. Now we're burning. Star Fox Zero. Honestly, One big thing I read about Star Fox Zero was that people would have rather just had a graphical overhaul and maybe some expanded missions for Star Fox 64. Not what we got here. And Star Fox Guard really wasn't any better. You agree too? Glad to hear it. Because it was... oh. And Karen wants me to burn Lego Racer, Pepsi Man, Hellboy, Asylum Seeker, Rascal, Fantastic Four, Mortal Kombat, SF, London Racer, Santa Claus Saves the Earth, Barbie Explorer, and Bubsy 3D. Uh-oh. Does Bubsy even qualify as a game? I agree. A revamped version of Star Fox 64 on the Switch would be tremendous. All right. That, I believe, is going to do it for the games that let me down, but just for some extra sweetness and flavor, let's burn all of them at the same time. ActRaiser 2, Beyond Oasis, Bravely Default, Dragon Age Inquisition, Dynasty Warriors 9, Fable 3, Final Fantasy 13, you bet it'd smell fantastic. And remember, it's not necessarily, for some of these games, it's not even necessarily that I think they're terrible. It's just that they disappointed me. Oh, why Dragon Age? Well, let's see if I can give a recap. The romance options were trash. They basically, they retconned healing magic completely out of the game. The whole potion limit thing was dumb. Some of the the romance storylines were kind of cheesy and not satisfying. We're gonna put this too big. All right, that's fine. Oh, hey there, Bishop. This is Little Inferno. It's basically a game with a giant fireplace you use to burn things. Let's see. Oh, let's just go with the old faithful mini nuke. You preferred the first Dragon Age? Same. Although, and people hate on Dragon Age 2, but I enjoyed Dragon Age 2 as well. Dragon Age Inquisition was disappointing. Oh, and Fable 3, 2 was way better, especially in terms of menus and co-op. Man, I found the co-op in 2 even kind of Fable, to me, hasn't really done co-op very well as of yet. They were trying to shoot for that in Fable Legends, but Fable Legends was destined to not even really be a Fable game. Just some sort of co-op dungeon thing with a Fable coat of paint. Alright, let's wave goodbye to all these disappointing games. Oh, now that was awesome. Oh. All right. You're really hoping the new Fable will pull through and make up for the failures. Same here, man. Oh, and I'm gonna get it for PC this time. All the other Fables I've played on console, but I think the new one's gonna be PC for sure. So that's gonna do it for this iteration of burning games and other things that irritate and disappoint us. So I'm gonna take a short break. I'm gonna end the stream and start a new stream because I need my videos to be cut separately, or else it just makes things confusing for the viewers who come back and watch later. So I'm going to take a very short break, and I'll be coming back with Genshin Impact. You won't want to miss it. And so for those of you who, let me see, this was Samuel's request. So Samuel, I hope this was to your liking. And for the rest of you, stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one.